Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are diving into something absolutely wild. We are going to visually map exactly how various substances completely hijack the brain's reward center. And it honestly doesn't matter if it's the cup of coffee you drank this morning or something significantly stronger, they all follow a highly predictable biological cycle. We're going to break down that exact cycle today and see what is actually happening inside our heads.
So here is our roadmap for the escalation arc today. 1. The brain's chemical journey. 2. The daily rituals. 3. The social illusion. 4. The short-lived rush. 5. The ultimate overdrive. And finally, 6. The inevitable crash.
All right, part 1, the brain's chemical journey, or the biological cycle.
Think of this as the universal rulebook for basically any mind-altering substance. Step 1 is the onset. That's the moment the chemical actually hits your bloodstream and starts tweaking the brain. Step 2 is the peak. This is that temporary illusion of total control, infinite energy, or absolute peace. But the key word there is illusion. You are literally just borrowing energy or happiness from your future self. Which brings us right to step 3, the come down. This is the biological tax. Chemistry always balances out in the end, and the come down is when your body pays that tax, and usually it pays it back with interest.
Moving right along to part 2, the daily rituals. We're talking caffeine and nicotine.
Let's start with caffeine, right? It's literally the daily fuel for billions of people every single morning. But how does it actually work? Well, it all boils down to a chemical called adenosine. Adenosine is basically what tells your brain, hey, I'm tired. When you drink a cup of coffee, the caffeine sneaks into your brain and physically blocks this chemical. So the really crucial takeaway here is this: caffeine doesn't actually give you energy. No way. It simply hides your exhaustion from you.
If we map out the timeline of that morning cup, right around 20 to 30 minutes, boom, you hit the onset and the peak. Your neurons are firing faster, you feel super sharp. It's basically confidence in a cup. But a few hours later, your body breaks down that caffeine, and all that blocked adenosine just comes flooding back in like a broken dam. That sharp focus fades right into irritability and jitteriness. And if you try to quit cold turkey, by the very next day, you're hitting withdrawal. We're talking splitting headaches and total brain fog.
Which leads us to this incredibly striking realization. We joke all the time about needing coffee to live, but guys, that is literally withdrawal disguised as culture. It's so true. Over time, your brain actually stops producing as much of its own natural alertness, meaning you need more caffeine just to feel like your normal self. That coffee is merely kicking the tiredness can down the road.
Now, what about our other massive daily ritual? Nicotine. It's a super fast-acting stimulant. To understand nicotine, you really got to look at dopamine, the brain chemical that's responsible for making you feel calm, focused, and just content. When nicotine gets inhaled, it hits the brain in literally seconds, releasing this sudden, massive surge of dopamine. But look at nicotine's timeline here. The onset happens in seconds. It's this brief, clean high where your stress just seems to melt away. The peak, though, it only lasts for minutes. Your brain feels like it's humming along perfectly, but nicotine burns out incredibly fast. As soon as that dopamine fades, the come-down hits. We're talking minutes to maybe a few hours, creating all this tension and restlessness. Nicotine isn't actually relaxing you, it's just resetting your withdrawal. It completely traps you by tricking your brain into thinking peace only exists in that tiny window between cravings.
All right, part 3, the social illusion. Let's talk about alcohol.
Alcohol pulls off a genuinely brilliant biological trick. On the left side here is the illusion you feel during the peak, right? Warmth, control, confidence, deep social connection. But on the right side is the actual biological reality. Alcohol is fundamentally a depressant. Your brain is literally slowing down. You are actively losing your judgment and your coordination is slipping. Your brain feels like everything is totally amazing and fine, but it's a complete illusion.
Tracing the alcohol journey, the onset takes just a few minutes, bringing this easy, open relaxation. Within 1 to 2 hours, you're hitting the peak. Emotions are running high. Maybe you're talking a bit too loudly, but your judgment is definitely fading. And then, the inevitable biological tax. The fun tilts into pure exhaustion, and by the next morning, you are hit with a total chemical crash. The hangover. Your brain chemistry is just completely depleted.
Part 4, the short-lived rush. We're moving on to cocaine.
Cocaine creates this massive dopamine flood, and the mechanics of it are honestly staggering. Step 1, it enters the bloodstream. Step 2, it floods the brain with dopamine. But step 3 is the real kicker here.
It actively blocks your body from reabsorbing that dopamine. Suddenly, your brain is effectively drowning in pleasure signals. Every single thought you have feels brilliant, and you feel entirely untouchable.
Because this mechanism is so aggressive, it creates a super brutal timeline. The onset is almost instant. The brain feels absolutely electric. But the peak, it literally only lasts minutes. The brain's reward system rapidly burns through all its fuel. Because the high is so sharp and so incredibly short, the come down just slams into you mere minutes later. Dopamine levels crash hard, resulting in an immediate surge of intense anxiety and complete exhaustion. You end up craving more just to feel your baseline normal again.
Okay, Part 5, the ultimate overdrive, MDMA and methamphetamine.
First up is MDMA, which a lot of people call the love drug. It pulls this off by flooding the brain with a very specific trio of chemicals: serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. When these three work together, they create a state of immense happiness, reward, and deep, profound connection. Your brain is essentially running on maximum chemically induced empathy.
So, what is the actual cost of all that maximum empathy? Well, in minutes, the onset brings warmth and electric touch. For hours during the peak, users feel this sense of infinite connection. But the come down is severe. MDMA borrows so much serotonin for its peak that the bank is left completely drained. For days afterward, the user is left feeling totally empty, exhausted, and incredibly sad. The connection was purely chemical, not real, and the brain is left paying a really heavy price.
And that brings us to methamphetamine. If cocaine is a short rush, meth is literally a biological lightning bolt. It supercharges the whole system by forcing the brain to burn through its entire dopamine supply in one massive, unbelievable explosion of energy.
Tracing meth's brutal timeline reveals a truly terrifying extreme. Within seconds of onset, energy just explodes. You feel completely invincible. For hours, the peak provides pure euphoria and total obsession. You feel absolute control over everything. But then comes the crash. Because the dopamine supply is quite literally gone, the come down lasts for days. It is a severe, agonizing chemical hangover. The whole world just feels gray, slow, and totally empty, very often accompanied by intense paranoia.
This quote right here perfectly anchors our core motif. Meth gives you energy that feels infinite until you realize it's stolen from your future self. It's just a stark, really poetic reality of what powerful stimulants actually do to the human body. Every single ounce of that godlike energy was simply borrowed time.
Which brings us to Part 6, the inevitable crash, or the biological tax.
As we look at these final takeaways, the pattern is absolutely undeniable. Whether it's the daily routine of hiding your exhaustion with your morning coffee, the social illusion of grabbing a beer, or the extreme, system-draining rush of methamphetamine, the rules literally do not change. Peaks only ever borrow happiness and energy from the future, the come-downs are the biological tax, and your brain always pays it with interest. Chemistry always balances out, and the illusion, no matter how convincing it feels in the moment, always fades. I want to leave you with this final thought. If every single one of these chemicals, from your harmless morning coffee to the hardest stimulants out there, if they all only borrow from our future selves, are the peaks really worth the come-downs? It's a fascinating question about how we manage our own biology, isn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you. I'll see you next time.